There's a lot of changes that have occurred, which is almost through to the complexity of assignment. A while ago it really was a phone number was provided to a physical phone. It didn't move. All right, portability, I think that's been around for more than 20 years and is very commonly used. So that was one level of complexity, which meant a number could be moved to another operator at the drop of a hat. But then you also get this concept of hierarchy of ownership. A number might belong to an MNO, but it's then been sub-allocated to an MVNO. Some applications need to know that. It gets worse than that, because then someone has put in a platform of some sort. It might be, everyone's talking about CPaaS at the moment, so a communications platform that is using multiple communications methods. Again, the numbers which were allocated to an MNO got sub-allocated to an MVNO, got sub-allocated to a CPaaS platform. Each one of those organisations has the right to use that number, but you need to know what that relationship is. So I would say a massive change in this last, really only a few years, 2-3 years maybe, and we're seeing that continue, is this recognition that there is a hierarchy of ownership, not just a simple ownership of a number. Another thing which has happened, which is another game changer, is just the volume of numbers. Now you might say, okay, the population of the planet isn't increasing that greatly. However, when you add in IoT, I've now got devices, I've got cars, I've got my fridge. Whilst many of those might be using sort of internet addresses, a huge number of them are actually using SIMs, and that SIM has got a good old-fashioned telephone number associated with it. So tens of billions of identities have suddenly appeared on the planet, which are things rather than people or businesses. Those are requiring new means of allocating phone numbers, recognising the phone number doesn't just belong to the platform, it belongs to a brand. So I've now got a brand association with a platform, with an MVNO, with an MNO, with a country. Whoa. So that's the complexity that we're seeing in the marketplace that is generating the need to really be able to access this information quickly, effectively, consistently. You become very dependent on it. It can't just work sometimes, it must work all the time. So those are the challenges that we're up against. A number of information services, you've got a number of jobs to do. Part of that is collecting the information in the first place. You've got to find the sources of information. The number of information is not usually ours, it's someone else's. It belongs to an operator or a regulator, or maybe even to an individual, maybe to a company. All of those sources need to be brought together and put into a form that can actually be queried or made available to the ecosystem, to the market that requires to know more about a particular number. And I have to be honest, that collection process really is the service. It's hard. It's all in different places, it's all in different formats. Sometimes there's bits missing. So there is a job to do, almost like a librarian, of sticking the books back together again and finding a way of making that information coherent so that it can be consumed electronically, so that it can actually be used in real time as well. So it's got to be really fast, it's got to be accessible almost instantly. Managing that data is a real challenge. Right, to access it, providing query services where you're using basically APIs, a very, very simple query process that allows you to say, I've got this number, which operator does it belong to? Has it been allocated? Is it real? So it's those sorts of questions that we're answering at a really basic level for routing, for validation, for fraud detection. And those are the three main things that are being done with that data. So the three things I mentioned as kind of the applications for this kind of data. Validation. It might be an enterprise wants to validate because they've been given a phone number to call back. Should I call it, or is that a waste of time? Is it even just missing a digit, something stupid? But it can also be someone is pretending to be someone that doesn't exist. At the wholesale level, they're more often looking for fraud. They're typically saying, how do I ensure that someone isn't building traffic that doesn't really exist, or has been asked to make a connection to a premium rate number or something of that sort. That's where these validation cases come in, and it's you would have thought very simple, but as I'm describing, these attributes are quite complex. The second thing I talked about was routing. And as we add more services, we started with voice, all right, that's nice. Then we added SMS. Okay, a little more challenging. Oh, now I've got RCS to deal with. Where do I send my RCS? Who's the RCS service provider for that operator? So I've now got a whole set of additional questions about where I'm going to. All of those are routing questions. And I haven't talked about fraud yet. Many of these fraud cases can be very quickly identified by just saying, is the number, or is the organisation responsible for that number the right kind of organisation that I would expect to be sending this kind of transaction to? As we've talked about all of those, it really is the carrier community, the mobile community, a lot of the business messaging, business platform, business voice community. All of these people, they're all using phone numbers. Therefore, they are my market. They are the people that are interested in understanding the attributes of this data.